And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. So today I actually have a very special guest with me. I have the actor from Chaos Rising, actor Patrick Fowler, and I cannot wait to dive into this. I thought he did a really good job with his lines, his delivery, everything about this movie. I really enjoyed. I want to see more of this. So with further ado, let's go on ahead. Let's bring him in. I can't wait to talk about Chaos Rising. So let's do it. And hey, Patrick, how are you?
I'm pretty good, man. Thank you.
Very
In
well.
London, in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Oh wow!
In-
You know what? I
yeah.
remember doing a movie review during the middle of a thunderstorm and everything. I had to break that up into two sections. So hopefully we won't have to do this with this interview or whatever, because I want to keep you around as much as I can. So,
Mhm.
but man, just coming out of the gate though, I really have to say I enjoyed Chaos Rising. I thought the humor landed with me, the dark humor. I also like your line where you say, "Well, sometimes you just need an antique,"
That's a
and I
great
just
line.
busted out laughing. So yeah.
There are a few lines on set where, not when we delivered them, or when I delivered them, or just when I heard them on set, I was like, "That's going in the trailer. It's got to be in the trailer."
It's got to be in the trailer. I mean, that line alone, and then of course the king who spends all his money on booze and women and the party. He's like,
Hmm.
well, where's all the stuff at? Well, he spent it all on booze,
Yeah.
and he's like, well, what about that? He goes, that's an antique. Well, sometimes you just need an antique,
Hmm.
and I just thought it was really great. I thought the
And
whole
it's
entire
true.
storyline was good. The banter between you and the other I forgot the character's name, but it's always you and the banter between you and this other character. And I thought,
Between me and Bertrand, between me
yeah,
and
Bertrand.
who's become a fan favorite. It's so great that everyone has just latched on to this comic relief night. Everyone just loves Bertrand, and I think that's fantastic.
I think so
He's been a
too.
real sleeper hit.
So my question is this, okay? So when you were presented with the script and everything, what made you say, yes, I want to sign on for this? Is it because of the fantasy aspect of it? Is it because of the fact that the writing was just so good? What made you say, you know what, I want to try Chaos Rising? And did you know anything about Chaos Rising before going into this?
So I've known about Chaos Rising for a long time before it was anywhere near being made. Because so I don't know how familiar you are with the team who created the project, but it was the brainchild of two members of a combat stunt team that I've been part of since I was about 22, so going on about 10 years now. And we've worked on film and television for many years. And they say that when you're in the creative industry like this, you're really encouraged to create your own work. And these two guys, the two producers, are the two Grahams, huge Warhammer fans, and they wanted to team up and create something of their own, something in-house, a grassroots project. And at the time of inception, when I heard about, we were shooting on Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. I don't know if you saw that. That's a
I saw Robin Hood. That's and I
You
know
saw
that
Robin.
some of the stuff.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So we've got a long-standing relationship with Ridley Scott, and it was on there that I first heard about it. And at first, it was just going to be a 10-minute short, just a showcase to show what the combat team can do when we're working for ourselves. And it grew and grew and grew, and we got loads more money than we thought we were going to get, and everyone was very excited. And we did a video to try and raise more awareness, where we introduced the character of Marauder Mike. And Marauder Mike became huge. Like I think he's sitting somewhere at like 370,000 views on YouTube now. He just blew up. He's this weird character that we just kind of created on the day. And that went down so well that Charlie, the director of the piece, asked me if I wanted to play Florian. And not being a jobbing actor who believes in the power of serendipity and of nepotism, any big opportunity very often just falls in your lap. It's unlikely that you've done the work for it. A lot of the time, something just happens out of nowhere for you. So there was no way I was saying no to this part. Even if the script was terrible, which it isn't, and the people were horrible, which they're not, I would have done it anyway because it was such a big role.
Right. I can understand that though, because you've been part of the stunt team for a long time, and then you're into the Warhammer thing, and I never heard of Warhammer up until this point. So I
Oh,
just
really?
reviewed it as someone that loves fantasy, that loves the fantasy aspect of something like Game of Thrones or Ridley Scott movies,
Excellent.
and I reviewed it in that kind of aspect because that's what worked for me, and this is what I like. It ends up transforming into different types of genres, different types of things. Even if you
Mhm.
haven't heard of Warhammer, you can still enjoy this film and go into it as someone who loves fantasy, loves
Mhm.
medieval kind of stuff, and that's what I fell in love with this film.
That's a really difficult line for us to tread because anyone who knows anything about Warhammer knows how dense the lore is and how kind of inaccessible it could be if you don't know the first thing about it. To try and jump on to the lore is very difficult. So we had this difficult line to straddle of satisfying all the lifelong fans of the IP without alienating everyone who doesn't know anything about it. So the fact that you watched it with no previous knowledge and still got all this enjoyment out of it, that's mission accomplished for us. That's exactly what
Yes.
we wanted to do.
Matter of fact, we actually watched the pitch video. Josh and I did,
Mm-hmm.
and we just cracked up laughing about the
Yeah.
bit that you guys did. I mean, I'm like, this is how you sell a movie. This is
Yeah.
how you do it,
Mm-hmm. Well,
and I love how you go. I love it.
we wanted to put across that we are really professional workers. We built up like an incredible work ethic and reputation on set, which is why we get work, because people know that you could just kind of wind us up and just let us go, and the production doesn't need to worry about us. But we like to have a laugh as well. We've got a really good sense of humor, and what better way to endear people to you and try and get them to chuck you a few pounds or a few bucks than by showing that we can be silly as well, that we can do all this stuff and make it look authentic, but we can have a bit of a wry smile while we're doing it.
I thought it was funny with the whole entire fire bit where you light someone on fire. I thought that was funny. The whole entire killing someone while they're talking, and then that person
Mm-hmm.
follows the next line of dialogue.
Yeah.
It could have actually been where it could throw somebody off with the pitch, but it was making me with my eyes glued to the screen. It was like, okay, what's going to happen next
Yeah.
to that pitch? Because the pitch was just awesome. I'm just
Mm.
going to bring that out
The
to
pitch
you.
is a huge production in itself. Like, even looking back at the pitch, you think like that's thousands of pounds worth of production value that's just gone into a 3-minute pitch. So we haven't been playing by halves the whole time. So when Chaos Rising came out, it should have been no surprise to anyone that it looked as great as it was, because we've never we've always doubled down. We've always tried to make everything look as big and impressive as possible.
That's awesome, man. And also, too, Midnight wanted to know this. Okay, what styles or how deep in history did you have go to study different fighting techniques?
So I'm really lucky to be part of the combat team. Combat International is the team that, whenever you see people fighting on screen, save a few people in Chaos Rising, they're all members of the Combat International squad. So I've been lucky enough to be training with Combat International since I was 22. So for about the last 10 years, we've been training with swords, with axes and shields, swords and shields, the whole bit. So we have like a series of like katas, for want of a better word, that we would work through to get to the point where, when we're immediately called up on set, like we need like 6 guys in the immediate background for this fight, I can pair off with someone and we can come up with a fight sequence in a minute. We can just cycle something through in a minute. So I'm not trained specifically in like HEMA, like a traditional sword fighting style, but our fighting style is optimized for dynamism and creating like thrilling and violent fighting. This is one of our big thrusts, is we don't want it to look neutered in any way. We want the fighting to be very visceral, very aggressive. And I was very lucky. The character who plays Bertrand, actually, who everyone's in love with, Bertrand and two of the other knights were the main choreographers on the piece. And Brody is very good with the two-handed sword style, HEMA style. He's been training since he was a child. So we have a legitimate expert in the fighting style on set, choreographing everything. So we know that the fighting is going to look fantastic, regardless of who you're working with. If you've got Brody there brainstorming these ideas and bringing these fight scenes to life, that's why the fight scenes look as good as they do. It's why they look as authentic as they do.
Right. I have to say that's something that I like about it was like how clean of the execution it was for the fight scenes to be, and how intense they were, and how gory they were, because it needs to be gory to amplify the war aspect to it, which I think
Cool.
that some people shy away from in some movies. With this one, I like how it has like a style like the 80s kind of throwback of the medieval kind of setting, and that's something that I really fell in love with because it reminds me of Conan, of the Barbarian. It reminded me of so much fantasy aspect of stuff that I grew up with, and it just transcends onto the screen.
Have you seen a film? I watched an old film with a friend of mine a few days ago called Dragon Slayer. Have you heard of Dragon Slayer?
I've heard of it, and I think I might have seen it in a long time
ago. It was a Disney and a Paramount co-production, and it's very Dungeons and Dragons-y. You can tell that it was made right in the wake of Dungeons and Dragons. You can find it on YouTube. The whole feature's on YouTube. And I was watching this with my friend on the weekend, and the one thing that really struck me about it was, now when you get fantasy, or say when you get science fiction movies or superhero movies, they often have a bit of a laugh at the fact that they're doing fantasy. They laugh at how silly it is. They can't quite take it seriously. They can't buy into it. This Dragon Slayer movie was like, no, we're going to talk about all these far off lands that won't ever feature. We'll speak about the dynasties that have come before. We're really going to double down on the fantasy because that's what people want. And you don't get that very often in mainstream fantasy now. And this is one thing that Chaos Rising does really well, is we have a joke, but we're not joking at how stupid everything is. We're taking the source material, the script very seriously. We don't laugh at the script ever. And that really comes across. And like you say, these throwback 80s movies, films were just, they were more sincere back then. They were more genuine. 80s and 90s. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, exactly. And I also like how you introduced the main villain of this movie, though, too, because you hear the stories, you hear the legends of it. And then when you wind up finally seeing him and how it's being played out, and it's like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Because now what I thought was the person who I thought was dead is actually still alive, even though my story did say that I killed them, but there's another way that you can kill somebody, and the way you kill them was spiritually, not physically. And you didn't think that was going to come back at you at the end of it either. Your character didn't.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really liked, was you end up, they tell us something and then they show us something. It doesn't treat the audience as if they're stupid either. And I like that because it makes us be that more intense and worry for your character too. Because the part that I think that was the most horrifying thing was when your character is just like shocked. Like a moment of shell shock is when you finally see your enemy coming and you're trying to prepare everybody and your eyes just get really big. It's like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. I don't know what I'm going to do.
All my chickens have come home to roost because I've got this big reputation to uphold. And I've got my nemesis who's been dead these past however many years, and now he's back. And on this one night where I just happened to be in a virtually indefensible fortress with a handful of good guys to help me out and a bunch of underprepared, under-armored, ill-equipped peasants. And I just
my
need
favorite thing, though,
and he's not a born leader as well. Florian's not, he's not a good guy. He's not who you want leading you. He's not really very different from the barbarians. He's got a bloodlust exactly the same as them. He just fights for a slightly different cause.
Right.
So yeah, it's a perfect storm.
Exactly. He's there at the right place at the wrong time. He's thrown into this mixed bag and he doesn't know what to do. So I like how he's trying to figure things out as he's walking by, because he's not used to this place either. Because I feel like as someone that's watching it, that we're just as uninvited as you are in this movie. and we're introduced to this world just as you're introduced into this town for the very first time. So we're going on this journey with you, not knowing, not understanding where everything's at, and hoping that you'll find an outcome for this as well. And that's something I liked, was the journey of the character and trying to piece things together of how to get these enemies out of this town, and having these peasants, like you say. And also too, the funny thing was, well, I'm not married. Because, oh,
Yeah.
you could go out there. That was
Yeah,
my
yeah.
other favorite thing that you did.
Yeah, when I throw, there's
Yeah.
a few bits that I really enjoy, but that bit throwing the peasant out of the gate is one of my favorite moments, because in the world of Warhammer, you don't get good guys. You get like bad guys, and you get guys who are slightly not as bad. You get guys who are you get really horrible guys, and then you just get horrible guys. And those are the two tiers really in Warhammer. And it's moments like that where it's funny, we have like a bit of comedy, but at the same time, you see that Florian, especially having just seen one of his mates killed in front of him and having to deal with the guilt of that, his way to process that is just to like throw an innocent man to his death. That's how he's going to help, like get over some of the anger that he's feeling. Just chuck someone to their death, and he's feeling a bit better about himself.
Right. That's what I got the chip of it as well, though, to be honest with you, is like, well, I'm angry about this situation, but in order for me to mourn over this person, I'm going to take my anger out on somebody else and let them be the ones who carries out that burden for me.
And you can do it with impunity, because it's like back in the day, if you're a landed knight, although Florian isn't a landed knight, he's a questing knight, but if you're a knight, you can do whatever you want to these peasants, because there's no judicial system, and who are they anyway? They'll just keep breeding. And in this world, the knights care very little for the peasantry. The knights sort of detest the peasantry. They feel the duty to protect them, and there's a duty of care there. But this is as much an exercise in them being prideful and showing how tough they are, and not really them being generous or benevolent in any way.
Now, this is what Josh wanted to know too. What's the budget like for getting medieval equipment? I bet that stuff is actually pretty expensive or costly. But then again, you've been around it for so long, so I think there's a way that you can actually finagle it around a little bit, I think.
Well, so I wasn't, luckily for me, being talent, as they call it on set, I'm the talent. I don't really have to worry about all the actual work, the really important work where people should be getting paid the wage that the actors get to do. I don't have to worry about any of that. I just turn up and make sure my lines are learned, and that's it. That's all I have to worry about. So as well as running the combat team, the combat team is a subsidiary of a Scottish historical charity called the Clan Ranald Trust, and we provide a few various, we have like various little irons on the fire, and we have a huge store of costumes and weaponry and armor, massive amount, enough for any production to just walk into our studio, to our warehouse, and have everything taken care of. So lots of aspects of the armor and the costume we already had. A lot of it was already there. A lot of the weapons that you see and the majority of the Marauder costumes they all had to be made. They all had to be brought in. You see, there's so in the production, there's a character who's sort of the Baron's lackey, Sergeant Batard. He's the one who he drags poor Olivia off at the start to take her to the Baron's tent, and he also assembles the troops into the shield wall at the end, and he gets everyone to chant my name after we spurn the attackers. His name's Kaz, and he was our quartermaster. So a lot of the weaponry you see, I'm going to say a lot, I don't know if it was all of it, but a lot of the weaponry you see and the armor was purchased as it was, and then all of it was weathered and painted and made to look of the time by Kaz. So again, there is a cost involved, but because we're an army of volunteers, we bypass a lot of the cost because we've just got a lot of fantastic people who are willing to put their time on the line to put themselves in the future and think, if I sacrifice all this time now, eventually there's going to be something amazing to show for it.
Most definitely.
So, yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that how experienced that you guys actually are, and also too, I bet that also doing like, do you also do like any stage combat, combat for like theater or anything like that, or is it just?
I've never done anything for theatre. Everything that we've done has been for screen and for film and television. But you can. It's a transferable skill. Once we've got these skills, once you've learned enough, because it's as much a frame of mind as it is just knowing the movements. It's more kind of an attitude and a frame of mind that we teach and we try and instill in people, so that if you forget your moves on set, on another production, or if something goes wrong, you can just act in the moment. You can throw a headbutt in, or you can put an elbow in on someone if it feels right. So no, I've never done any combat on stage strictly for do you hear that thunder? That was pretty cool, wasn't it?
You have great sound effects over there, by the way.
Good, isn't it? Yeah, I should have
very
candlelight
authentic
and a shroud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But before we close out and everything, man, there's something else I wanted to ask you though too. There's this one part where they're talking about the legend of who you are, and basically what they believe is that you're the White Knight kind of thing, where you're in there to save them, and you're like, wait. So you're telling me that there's this legend that they built up around someone, and then all of a sudden, because of what's happening tonight, that's falling into place. Mm-hmm. Now, based on your character, the way it's like, now, is he just taking in the legend itself, or is he just like, wait, these people actually believe this, but I'm just here thrown into this thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but these people look to me for hope. And does your character, I was just wondering, this is just what I was thinking from me looking at it. And it's like, wait, I have to be the hope for these people now, even though I got thrown into this mix? Or was it like, oh, okay, so I am the White Knight. I am this legend. What would you say the characterization was?
It's a really good question, because Florian, at this point, when we encounter Florian from the beginning of episode 1 to the end, he doesn't really change. He's still full of himself and arrogant and bloodlusty. Even by the end, he's still pretty much the same guy. Whatever he's doing at this point, he's not doing for the greater good. He's doing it for himself. He's doing it because he hates Ulfgar, and he hates that he's back, and he needs to kill him.
Right.
So there's a pleasure in having to kill this guy again. He's happy to do it. He's certainly not doing it to save the people at this point.
Right.
He couldn't give it's. I think it's more about his song, the song of Florian, than it is about how other people are going to feature and how he's going to save other people. He needs. I don't think he's too focused with ego. He just needs to kill Ulfgar at that point. And
because he also, at that point too, I think he also has a sense of danger to him though too, because it's now his second time going up against him. It's like, well, I need to kill. It's either be killed, pretty much just bring him down, or else he's going to kill me. Be killed or be killed.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to take him out of the picture straight away. This is old news for this guy, and he's angry. He's really incensed. Ulfgar and the Marauders, the Chaos Marauders, represent everything that Florian is opposed to. They're like how vulgar they are, and how cruss, and how bloodlusty they are. He needs to expunge that from the world altogether. Can you hear me okay for that?
Yeah? I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so it's like you say, it's kill or be killed at that point. He's not bothered about the peasantry, and he won't be for some time yet. But that's why we need to start getting the ball rolling on getting people back in episode 2, because Florian's got a long way to go. Like, I've got a vague idea of where we're heading next, and we've barely started. As you get from the end of episode 1 is like, we're not even giving you like giving you a nibble of like what it is that's left.
Like a little
to come.
small nugget of something.
Oh man,
and
you guys have
I'm going
just
to tell
got
you
no
this.
idea.
This little small nugget, I want more of because I'm just that dived into it. I would review the whole entire series, to be honest with you.
Oh man, well, I can't wait to speak to you again when episode 2 rolls around.
Okay,
Because you're going to be
definitely will.
As happy as you are now, you're going to be blown away. We'll speak for an hour next time.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. Before we close out, I do have something that Midnight wanted to do, and it's like a fun question.
Man. Sure, no problem.
It goes, can you give me a ride to Ireland or Scotland?
Can I give him a ride?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds complicated, man. How much is he paying? Is he paying my expenses?
You know what? I told Josh this. I said, look, man, I said, he's not going to do it for free.
Well, I mean, yeah, there will be a Kickstarter. There will be a Kickstarter.
Yeah, we'll just do a GoFundMe for him. And
and it's Scotland as well. It's definitely not Ireland. I don't know what he's talking about Ireland for. Is he getting our...
He doesn't have a clue about geography. You have to excuse him.
You Americans, we're all just the same country, aren't we, to you?
Exactly. But man, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you about Chaos is Rising. I definitely had a great time talking to you, and I would love to have you on for like a full hour because I'm just geeked out over this. I played Magic the Gathering in high school and things like that. So this fantasy aspect in this fantasy world is just something I love.
Right, isn't it? It's great to get that. It's great to get that honest, genuine, like no strings attached. We're just gonna go full fantasy for the next 45 minutes. We're going to leave the real world behind.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm so glad that you got that experience out of it, man. That's exactly what we wanted to do. So it's so nice to speak to someone who's a success story from Chaos Rising. Cheers.
Thank you, man.
And you can find us on YouTube. I'm sure you'll shout us out. You've been shouting us out anyway, but yeah, go watch Chaos Rising on YouTube, guys. Tell your friends.
And the link is actually below this interview as well, so you guys can go in and check it out.
Well, they're fully primed. Everyone watching this is primed to just glide right into watching it now.
Just glide right on in, click that play button, and give them some love over there because they definitely deserve it. They did a fantastic job with the Kickstarter. This is actually one of the best Kickstarters I've seen since doing the podcast and stuff like that. And everything was built up together. I wish you and your team nothing but success. And I love the Robin Hood stunts. The stunt work was fantastic. Everything with this is fantastic, man.
Thank you so much, man. That really means a lot. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, John.
You're very welcome, man. It's good to have you on here. Guys, on Monday at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, I will be having baseball legend Ricky Hill on. And also the director who directed the movie The Hill. And that's going to be at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So don't miss out on that. Man, once again, it's a great pleasure.
How do you expect me to follow Ricky Hill?
Dude, you have an axe in your hand. And a sword.
So. I'm always ready to go.
You are a legend, and people are writing songs about you on Chaos Rising. So, you know.
It's about time, John. It's about time I had a few ballads written about me. I've been working on them.
Have Ozzy on there. Have Dio's gone, but, you know, you can have some cover songs, you know.
We'll get Lamb of God. I like Lamb of God to write a song about me. That would be nice.
I'll tell you what. I'll tweet them out after this interview, and we'll get that started.
Cheers, mate. Perfect.
All right, man. Well, always until next time, guys, have a great and safe day. Stay safe out there in this weather. And always until next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.